Specifically, I think Denver and Miami have interesting summers coming up. I want to start with Miami just because I think they're the team that needs more if they want to get back to the finals next year. I mean, they had a great run, but this was not a great team by any stretch of the imagination. We all have, sort of tended to agree that they had less talent than the majority of their opponents along the way, which is part of why they were such a great story. Bradley Beal availability notwithstanding, I mean, they are a team that I'm assuming is looking to bring in a Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard sort of guy to pair with Bam and Jimmy, because the issue that they had was offensive consistency. They got great performances from Strus and Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent, but eventually it kind of ran out. And this is what the Stars that's what you pay them to do.
This is a funny conundrum for them, because we saw it a little bit with the I think we all agree that on net the Tyler Hero injury turned out positive for them over the course of the playoffs. And maybe in the finals it would have been the other way. But maintaining that identity, that culture, if you will, that defensive, physical, grindy culture that allows them to maximize their talent, bring in a guy who is a more of a score first guy who doesn't compromise that. I don't think from a toughness standpoint, a guy like Lillard would. He's just bad defensively. Some of the other names that have been mentioned is like, is that really a Heat player? And so it is kind of a conundrum, because you have to improve at the thing you're best at, but not sacrifice the stuff you're already good at too much to get there. And that's a really, like, mechanics and salary cap and assets aside, that's an interesting philosophical conundrum.
Yeah, no, I think they're really are in that tough spot of like, okay, we need to level up. There's no question about it, right? And it's going to be funny because I just talked about defense for so long. Like, they need to improve their offense and bring that up to another notch. And I think that's the important thing for them. And I think, yeah, listen, they've been big game hunting for a long time. They've kind of been, hey, we're interested in Kevin Durant, which, like, okay, no shit, who isn't? But like even last year, and I think, there was Donovan Mitchell. Like, they know they've needed to add another kind of scorer type guy. I think the Beal thing is going to be really interesting for them. I think I'm kind of just with Seth. I don't know if Seth's really thinking this or not, but like, I think you got to move Hero. I think if you're going to bring in another scorer, I think that's you're really kind of your best chance to do it with that stuff. And I think you need to go with Bam can't be your number two. That's the other thing I learned in this playoffs, right? Is Bam can't be your number two. He's a third option type guy. Unbelievable defensively, third option on offense. And I think they need that number two guy, or even at times that number two guy needs to become a number one. And I think that's why you need to go find a guy like Beal or Dame or something like that. Like, they have to go big game hunting. And I think that's an important for them to get to this level next year or close to it. They got to go get a guy like that. They can't take that. And as Seth was saying too, they got to be careful because they've built a certain culture and that guy has to fit that culture. And, like, let's just be honest, Kyrie ain't going to fit that culture.
Well, I mean, maybe. You never know. I mean, you never know until a guy gets somewhere. We can make assumptions.
No, I'm going to make the assumption on Kyrie.
I don't know.
I'm going to make
I try not to.
Kyrie. No.
Anybody can change. But I will say,
the least dependable guy who's looking for PTO in his contract is not a Miami Heat player.
PTO in the contract. That's a good idea. I will say, so you that's a great point that you mentioned. The luxury that Denver has with Jamal Murray and even Michael Porter Jr. is that those guys can go off and be the best guy on the court at any time. And that was the difference, I thought, for, these two teams. But Tyler Hero's contract extension kicks in. 4 years, $120 million for Tyler Hero, right? So he's a little bit harder to move, but I mean, he's young. He can score. Can he go be a high volume guy for a team that, is looking to, I don't know, add a young guard?
I'm glad you brought up MPJ in the context of this, because what we were, as Mo was talking, I was thinking the things we learned is that the sort of that smaller, poor defensive scoring guard archetype. It's not something we haven't seen before. I mean, Jordan Clarkson is a previous example of sort of someone who's been a very effective regular season player who gets hunted in the playoffs. And we're talking about Tyler Hero, we're talking about Jordan Poole. Blazers didn't make the playoffs this year, but Anthony Simons probably falls into that. CJ McCollum probably falls into that a little bit. And you contrast MPJ with Tyler Hero. Porter Jr. could not make a shot in the finals. If Tyler Hero or Jordan Poole or whoever else goes through a stretch where they are shooting that poorly, is there any way you can see any of them contributing? I think Mo and I were talked about this a lot on our playbacks. Is okay. He's not making shots, but he's making plays. He had a rough game too, especially in the finals. But MPJ made plays because, I mean, part of it is just size and athleticism, but was able to affect the game without doing that. And I think that's, a lot of the scoring types that Miami could bring in are the ones that, if they're not scoring, what are they giving you?
Well, not to go too deep into what we do at Sports Business Classroom, but this is one of the things that we teach in scouting is that if you can watch a guy play offense and stop the tape, but before you see the ball go in, how do you feel about him defending? Right? It is amazing how much that ball going in for Michael Porter Jr. colored what people saw on defense. And he did have some bad defense early, but his length, he just used it. And this is the thing that I think Miami is lacking, obviously the size, but also the length on the perimeter. And it's amazing because their defense is still really good. And Bam is incredible. But wouldn't it be if they could get Mikal Bridges? Like we keep thinking about Bradley Beal, but if like Mikal Bridges was available, Cam Johnson is going to be out as a restricted free agent, so I don't think that they can get him. But Dorian Finney-Smith is a guy that comes to mind. And now you run into the offensive issues, but if we're looking for two-way guys, I mean, they need a guy who can dribble, yes, but I think they need another guy or two as well. Excuse me. That's a lot of twos.
They'll need to kind of supplement their roster here a little bit. We'll have to see what they're going to do with Gabe Vincent, and who's a free agent. They're going to have Caleb Martin coming back. We'll see, with all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, sure. But I think their first focal point is like, this isn't a team that needs to, we just fell short, we need to build around the margins. It was a more at like one point, like, holy shit, the Miami Heat made it to the finals. Like, like if we told you that I told you that after they lost to Atlanta, the way they lost to Atlanta in that first play-in game, you guys would have thought I've lost my mind. And you wouldn't have been wrong. Like the way how bad they looked in that sense. They need to make a big splash first and then figure out the rest later. And I think, the Nets are interesting because they have all of those wings. So who knows what's going to happen there? They can't possibly have all of them going into the season. But I think for them, I think their first job right now is let's just take a massive swing here.
I think that the thing you would say about Miami is you do have confidence that they will have an honest enough self-assessment that they're not going to think that we started the finals again last year. And we've seen other teams do that and think, well, we just think around, blah, blah, blah. No, we made the finals. We have to get much better. I think we can take that on faith that Miami will go into the offseason, not just thinking we need tweaks, we need to get much better. And so they, instead of like a team like, I'll name names like the Hawks and Mavs the last 2 years who think, we kind of made the conference finals. We had some decent fortune and path, but we played well. We're a conference finals now. We can build from that instead of assessing, we're short in these areas. And I think Miami will do that. So, so they will give themselves the best chance to make the moves you're saying they need.